Welcome back. All right. Looking at the NHL teams on the board, we're going to talk about and grade how they've played through the first quarter of the season. And in some cases, teams aren't quite at the quarter pole. Some are a little bit beyond the quarter pole, but enough teams have played 20 games so far this year that I feel like this weekend's a good time to look at where they are. And these numbers are prior to Friday's games. So these numbers do not include Friday's games as I'm recording this on Friday. So, yeah, and then I post to the channel on Saturday. I'll be doing the same with the West. So, looking at Boston, starting at the top, goals for per game, they are 31st in the National Hockey League. So, blue because that's in the lower half of the league. Goals against per game, they are 24th. It is not a recipe for success that way. 5-on-5 shooting percentage. So, see, I'm putting in, that's not an advanced stat necessarily, but kind of sort of. 5-on-5 shooting percentage. They are 21st in the NHL. The one that surprised me with Boston, their 5-on-5 save percentage. I'm actually going to be using the red marker for that one because they are tied for 10th. So, not too bad. Goals for above expected. So, they're not scoring a lot. And it's a negative 6.49 in goals for above expected, meaning they are scoring 6.5 goals less than what would be expected with the chances that they had. Whereas on the goaltending side of things, goals against above expected is a negative, which is a good thing. I tried recording this earlier and I made a complete mess of it, so I'm changing it out a little bit. So goals against above expected is actually a good number, and their save percentage 5-on-5 is a good number, and I was surprised by that. So we go to Buffalo, and I will assign letter grades at the end of this. Buffalo, they are 13th in goals scored per game, so that's red. Goals against per game, they are tied in 19th place for goals against per game. In terms of 5-on-5 shooting percentage, they're 4th in the National Hockey League, which should be red because that's the top half of the league. I'm not used to changing colors while I'm writing. But yeah, they are, why did I write 5? I have no idea why I wrote 5. They're 4th. They dropped a spot because I had to change colors. And then in 5-on-5 save percentage, they're actually 19th there. So it is interesting that their offense is good. Their goaltending / defense, the numbers haven't necessarily been as good. But let's take a look at this. So goals scored above expected, 7.17. Again, this is before the game on Friday night. Goals against above expected, 0.73. So that's not bad. And I would think Levi's probably got a rough number there. So I don't think that's a bad number overall. So we get to Detroit. With Detroit, going to be some blue on this one. They're 26th in goals per game. They are tied for 19th with Buffalo in terms of goals against per game. 5-on-5 shooting percentage, they are 31st in the National Hockey League. But then 5-on-5 save percentage, they're 6th. That's not bad at all. That's not a bad number at all. Goals scored above expected. It's going to be a negative here. It's a negative 9.36. And these numbers, the goals for above expected, goals against above expected, are both courtesy of Money Puck. So negative 9.36. Goals against above expected for Detroit. They've actually got a good number there. So this negative is a good one. You want your goals against to not be above expected. You want your goals for to be above expected. So a minus number is good for the goals against above expected. I figure we're clear as mud on that, right? All right, Florida. Florida, going to be some red with Florida, of course. They are tied for 8th in the NHL in goals scored per game. Goals against per game, though, I was kind of surprised by this one a little bit in that they're 23rd. So either that's on the defense or on the goaltending. You guys can decide for yourselves. In terms of 5-on-5 shooting percentage, they are tied for 10th in the league. So that's top half of the league. That's a positive number. And then 5-on-5 save percentage, they're tied for 23rd. So kind of surprised by Florida being that low in terms of goals against per game and 5-on-5 save percentage. Goals scored above expected, 6.20. So they've scored more than what would be expected. And goals against above expected is actually 3.99. So again, more goals than expected for is good. More goals than expected against is not. So 3.99 there. Montreal. Montreal is going to be a lot of blue with Montreal. Not entirely though. They're 19th in goals scored per game. So below the midway mark there. They are 31st in goals against per game. Then we get into the 5-on-5 shooting percentage. They're tied with Florida in that category. They're both tied for 10th. That really threw me off too. In terms of 5-on-5 save percentage, they are 32nd. So this is where people jump in and say, hey, that's Caden Primo, not Montembeault. I'm just going with what the team's number is. Goals for above expected. It's actually a positive for Montreal. It's not a huge positive, but 0.55. And then goals against above expected is 6.12, which considering they're 32nd in 5-on-5 save percentage, 6.12 isn't as high as I might have expected for Montreal there. Ottawa. So Ottawa, we're going to start with the red one here. Goals for per game, they are 15th. Goals against per game, back to the blue. They are tied with Buffalo and Detroit for 19th in that category. I believe they all have 3.00, I think. Somewhere around that. And then 5-on-5 shooting percentage, 28th. So 28th for the Ottawa Senators. 5-on-5 save percentage is 27th. That's just disastrous. So it's interesting the goals for and goals against are both in the, okay, round average, a little mediocre. And then you look at the 5-on-5 shooting and save percentage, it's just not very good. Goals for above expected, negative 3.39. So they're not scoring as many as one might expect. And goals against above expected is also high at 8.52 goals above expected. Goals against above expected. There we go. That's better. All right, Tampa Bay. On the Tampa side of things, they're 5th in goals scored per game. Not really a surprise there. They're tied for 13th in goals against per game. Notice, this is the first time that a team in the Atlantic is in the top half of goals against per game. So, yeah, it's been a rough year defensively. 5-on-5 shooting percentage, yeah, they're second there. 5-on-5 save percentage, they're 12th. So it's all red for Tampa. So they're doing something right, that they're in the top half of the league, and they're right near the top when it comes to shooting percentage, 5-on-5, and goals scored per game. Goals scored above expected, 7.05. So again, that's good. They're scoring more than what might be expected. Goals against above expected is a good number as well, at negative 2.04. So red across the board for Tampa, that's pretty good. So if you're a Tampa Bay fan and you're saying, things have been kind of iffy lately, there you go. Not so iffy when you look at it that way. Toronto. The Toronto Maple Leafs, if you're tied for 16th, you do get red as your color because that's still the top half of the league, right? Top 16. Goals against per game. It's interesting because they're 6th. Every year we hear about how, their offense is great, but their defense sucks. And yet every year the stats tell you that's not the case. In terms of shooting percentage 5-on-5, going to need a blue one there. They are 18th in the league at 5-on-5 shooting percentage. And then in 5-on-5 save percentage, they are 3rd. So that's the Anthony Stolarz effect right there. Goals scored above expected. It is a positive number, barely, 0.18. Goals against above expected, negative 5.73. So almost all good for Toronto. Just this number here that's a little bit not great, but overall things are pretty good for Toronto. So there you go. There's the Atlantic Division. We move on to the Metro. In the Metro, we got Carolina. Goals scored per game, they're 3rd. So not really a huge surprise there. Goals against per game, they are tied for 3rd. 5-on-5 shooting percentage, they are 9th. 5-on-5 save percentage, they are 18th. Now here's where it's interesting too, because goals for above expected, they actually have a negative number here. So for Carolina, it's negative 5.01, meaning as many goals as they're scoring, they should be scoring more, is what that tells you. And then goals saved above, or goals against above expected. I'm used to using goals saved. This is goals against above expected. For Carolina, negative 4.80. So we've talked about their goaltending and issues with the goaltending. I'm going to go ahead and guess that negative 4.80, a lot of that's going to be Freddie Anderson, who is currently out. Columbus, on the Columbus side of things, offensively, a bit of a surprise. They are 10th in goals for per game. Scoring 6 here and there definitely helps. Goals against, though, that's a problem. So they are 30th in goals against per game, which I think we kind of know from watching their games and seeing how things are going. But in terms of 5-on-5 shooting percentage, they are tied for 5th in the league. So that's pretty good. 5-on-5 save percentage is not. It is 29th in the NHL currently in terms of the 5-on-5 save percentage. And then goals scored above expected. They have a positive number at 4.52, which can also mean that as the season goes along, the expectations could be that number gets closer to 0, that evens out. It doesn't always happen that way. And then in terms of goals against above expected, 4.35. So goaltending defense been letting down Columbus. If they tighten that up, honestly, the offensive numbers are pretty good. So I thought this was a fun way to look at it before giving out the grades. So yeah. All right, New Jersey. New Jersey's doing pretty darn well. They're tied for 8th in goals scored per game. So with Florida, goals against per game, they are 7th. So I see the comments about, well, I don't know about the goaltending if things are going to hold up. Things are going pretty well for the New Jersey Devils right now. And then in 5-on-5 shooting percentage, they are 15th. And in 5-on-5 save percentage, also 15th. So much like Tampa, it is red across this part of the board. How about over here? Goals for above expected is actually minus 1.84. So that actually is blue because they're scoring a little bit less than expected, which again could be good news because maybe they get back to the mean, a couple extra goals there. And then goals against above expected is actually a positive number. Negative 0.45. It's not a huge negative number, but considering last year we talked about New Jersey's goaltending and New Jersey's goaltending wasn't any good, this year it's been pretty darn good. So credit where credit's due. Again, comparatively speaking with last year. The Islanders in terms of goal scoring, they are tied for 27th in goals scored per game. So that's something they need to be working on. But they're getting bailed out a little bit here. Goals against per game is 12th because both of their goaltenders are pretty good. Goals or 5-on-5 shooting percentage is 25th in the National Hockey League. So those are numbers they're going to want to fix. 5-on-5 save percentage, 6th in the National Hockey League. So that proves what we know. The goaltending will take them as far as the Islanders will go. Then we get into the goals for above expected. Going to need the blue one here because it's a negative 7.65. And I get the feeling Anders Lee is going to be a lot of that. Lee, you never get as many goals out of him as one might expect for the chances he gets. And then this number is fantastic, negative 10.6 in terms of goals against above expected. So the goaltending is really keeping the Islanders at least in the hunt for a playoff spot. The New York Rangers, a lot of red here. They are 6th in goals for per game. Not really a huge surprise there. In goals against per game, they are 5th in the National Hockey League. So, yeah, 6th and 5th. And 5-on-5 shooting percentage, they're 8th. I might as well just keep the red one at this point. We know the red marker is going to be the one I'm using from here. And 5-on-5 save percentage, they are tied for 4th. So, it's all red. And then goals for above expected, 0.85. So right around expected, but it's a positive number. Goals against above expected, negative 7.99. So the Rangers, much like Tampa here, it is red all the way across. All right, Philadelphia. I think I'm going to need blue for Philadelphia, and I do. They're 21st in goals for per game. Goals against per game, they are 28th. 5-on-5 shooting percentage, 19th. 5-on-5 save percentage is 31st. It's getting better. Kolosov, Fedotov getting better, but still 31st there. Goals above expected, it's negative 1.87. So blue there, and then goals against above expected. Yep, blue there too at 7.42. It is insane that Philadelphia is anywhere near 500 with numbers that look like that. They're currently, 8, 10, and 2? It's crazy that with all these numbers working against them, they're anywhere near 500. So if Philadelphia gets things going offensively, or if their goaltending does continue to improve, who knows? Maybe they'll surprise some people. Pittsburgh. I'm not used to seeing Pittsburgh in this situation, but 22nd in goals for per game. 32nd in goals against per game, which wouldn't have been helped by tonight's game against Winnipeg. 5-on-5 shooting percentage is low as well, 23rd. 5-on-5 save percentage is low, 28th. Then you get into goals for above expected. This is not a great number, negative 14.21, which probably wasn't helped with tonight's game either. And goals against above expected, 9.11. So that's how Pittsburgh ended up at the bottom of the power rankings last week. Because, yeah, the overall numbers have not been great. Their play hasn't been great. There is not much of an argument to make that there's greatness right now with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Other than the resume for the Hall of Fame for some of their huge star players. The Capitals are second in goals for per game. The Capitals are 9th in goals against per game. So that's really strong right there. 2nd and 9th. Like, you got the Rangers 6th and 5th. New Jersey 8th and 7th. A tie for 3rd and 3rd for Carolina. The Metro Division definitely has better numbers than the Atlantic, and it's not particularly close. And then 5-on-5 shooting percentage. Capitals are first in the NHL right now. In terms of save percentage, 5-on-5, they are tied for 16th. So probably want to tidy that up a little bit. Goals for above expected is way too high. 14.39. That's got to come down. That it's just, it feels like Vancouver last year with that one. And then goals against above expected, negative 5.25. So for the Washington Capitals, it is red all the way across the board. Rangers, it's red all the way across the board. New Jersey as well. So let's get into the letter grades, shall we? The letter grades is where things get interesting. And we'll go back to Boston. Now, Boston's had to fire their coach. I don't see a grade for Boston that works other than a D, which is as low as I'm going here. As low as I'm going. People want me to give them an F. They can't fail. We're not done the year yet. You get the fail at the end of it. Can you imagine getting a fail in your first semester? You'd be like, cool, I don't have to go to class anymore. It's not a fail, it's a D. All right, and then Buffalo. Buffalo, I'm gonna give them a C. They're very up and down. Some games they look good, some games they look bad. Yeah, I'll give them a C. Detroit, it is hard not to give Detroit a D. And not just because it's big D for Detroit, but yeah, Detroit has not picked up where they left off last year. They just look kind of lost. Florida, I'm going to give Florida a B. And I'm not going to do pluses or minuses this year. Forget it. It's just A, B, C, D. So I'm going to give Florida a B. I think that, they're having some issues over the last couple weeks. They'll be fine. I have no concern. I think they're still going to win the division, and then they'll probably go on another run in the playoffs. And we'll all act surprised. Montreal. Yeah, it's going to have to be a D for Montreal, which is interesting because the defense for Montreal has been part of the issue in the goaltending as well. Ottawa, I'm going to be nice. I'm going to give Ottawa a C. They're not making those next steps, but their overall numbers, while they're not great, I do think that the fact that the goals for and goals against per game, they're close to the middle of the pack. They could still maybe make a run. Tampa Bay, I'm going to give Tampa Bay, I'll pick that up later. I'm going to give Tampa Bay a B, which means nobody in the Atlantic has got an A until now. The Toronto Maple Leafs, minus Austin Matthews, have been playing really, really well. And we're seeing the depth in the organization right now. It's kind of a lot of fun to watch. So, yeah, the Toronto Maple Leafs, definitely one of the teams to watch right now in the East. And so, yeah, I will give them an A. Carolina, well, there's an A for Carolina. The Carolina Hurricanes, absolutely an A team. I don't think there's any reason not to give them an A. Columbus, I'm going to give Columbus... You know what? Considering everything that they've been through, I'm going to give Columbus a B. If Columbus had been awful this year, if they couldn't score, we would have said, that's understandable under the circumstances. But they're able to score. The goaltending and the defense have been an issue. Their scoring's been pretty good. And if I had called that before the season started, people would have rightfully said, I think he's crazy. There's no way they're going to be able to score this year. And they are. New Jersey, they went in and they beat Florida back-to-back. They've beaten Carolina. I don't see any reason not to give New Jersey an A. I'm being fair, as far as I'm concerned. I know it's going to upset. It always upsets people where I put the grades. The Islanders... The goaltending's trying to save them, but in terms of the team itself, I'm gonna put a D on the board. They've only got 7 wins, and again, without the heroics of Sorokin and Varlamov at times, they wouldn't have the kind of numbers that they do. The Rangers, they get an A. The Rangers get an A, so that's 3 A's so far in the Metro Division, comparatively speaking, with the Atlantic Division. Philadelphia. C. They're meeting expectations. They've had their share of wins recently, although they've lost their last 2 in a row. I'm going to give them a C. Pittsburgh, it has to be a D, doesn't it? Pittsburgh is looking up at most of the rest of the teams in the East and the standings. I don't think they're at the bottom. I'm just trying to think. I think Montreal's still at the bottom, but yeah, Pittsburgh, and it's getting worse. It feels like they're starting to really fall into disrepair now. And then the Capitals, got to be an A. It has to be an A. The Washington Capitals have been an absolute sensation so far this season, so they get an A. There you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe in the event you may not have done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support as always. I will talk to you again soon.